you look at the track of our schools, and I think, because I was born at this particular point in time. I mean, all of us, every one of us, our perspective is dictated in some part by when we were born. But when I was either 6 or 7 years old, Sputnik went up. It was like 1956, 57. I think it was 56. Well, in 56, I would have been 5, so it had to be later than that. Maybe it was 67, 68. Anyhow, Sputnik went up when I was a kid. And in fact, I remember listening to it as it went over, ping, 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 with my friends' shortwave radio. And everybody in America was freaked out, right? The Soviets put up a satellite. And it was just a beacon. It was just going bing, bing, bing. And you could watch it go across the sky at night. And Dwight Eisenhower responded to that by saying, we are going to raise a generation of scientists. And it's funny, how our memory is and all this kind of stuff. The one time I tried to get this on, I suggested to a friend to put this on my Wikipedia page. This is like 5 years ago or something, about how when I was in the second grade, as I recall, and it might have been third, but I'm pretty sure it was second grade, Eisenhower dumped all this money into special education and said, let's identify the brightest kids in America and put them on a special track. And I was, myself and a friend of mine, a fellow by the name of Terry, in that second grade class in that school, that elementary school, and there were other kids from other grades, were pulled out half-time of our normal classes and were allowed to study absolutely anything we wanted as fast as we wanted. It was amazing. I was so grateful for that. And when the person put it up on the Wikipedia page, I mean, there's no links to any of this stuff anymore because this all happened before the internet even existed, right? This was like 58, 57. And so somebody said, you can't have that. There's no link. But by the time I was done, and I'm not the only one who had this experience. I've had, a lot of people over the years tell me that they were in similar programs. By the time I graduated from elementary school, 12 years old, out of 6th grade, going into 7th grade, two things had happened. One was I basically had completed a high school education. I mean, I had 2 years of Spanish. I had a year of Latin. I was playing the violin. I was doing science. I was doing math. I had geometry, elementary calculus. I understood what trigonometry was. I was reading Shakespeare. I mean, it's like I had studied psychology. I had studied biology. I mean, just whatever I was interested in, they would find a teacher and help me learn this stuff. It was so cool. Terry and I had so much fun. In fact, they were. I told this story once a long time ago, but it's worth telling again. I just want to talk about education for a minute. They were so concerned that maybe these kids who were in this like super advanced learning class, because this has never been tried before, and just you can nuke the Daily Take, that we were being mentally damaged by learning so much so fast that I think my recollection is it was every 3 months, but keep in mind, I mean, this was when I was 7, 8 years old, so it was a long time ago. My memory might be wrong. It might have been more or less frequent, but I remember having to go down to the nurse's office, the school nurse's office in my elementary school, and take a Rorschach test and take the MMPI, the Minnesota Multiphasic Inventory, and other kinds of tests to find out if I was being psychologically or emotionally damaged by learning so much stuff so fast. And in fact, I wasn't. And by the time I was 14, I'd gotten a summer scholarship to go to Michigan State University. And I wrote a paper called "The Effects of the Mutagen Colchicine on Aspergillus niger and Rhizobus nigercanus, 2 black bread molds." And then my lab partner and I did another thing where we tried to use DNase to dissolve the DNA in the nucleolus of a macroscopic water plant cell and see if we could then put new DNA and bring it back to life, right? I mean, this is long before anybody was doing this kind of stuff. We were unsuccessful, by the way. But the paper on colchicine as a mutagen worked really well, and I presented that, and that was my thesis for that summer. So 14 years old, MSU. But this nurse, this like fresh out of, or she wasn't a nurse, she was a psychologist, fresh out of psychology school, fresh out of education school, whatever, this sweet young thing. My friend Terry, his dad was a shrink. He was a psychologist. And he had a book on the Rorschach test. And so Terry and I dug it out and we read up on the test that we were taking. Oh, that's dangerous. So we decided to split this thing up. And my recollection is that he took violence and I took sex, although it might have been the other way around, but I'm pretty sure that that's the way it was. And so she gave us the Rorschach test, the ink blot test, right? This is the ink blot test. And I'm going, you know, whoa, look at what they're doing behind that keyhole. And people, you shouldn't be showing pictures like this to little kids. And isn't that illegal? You know, just like reacting as if I'm seeing these incredibly sexualized images when it's just ink blots. And Terry was reacting like, you know, oh my God, the blood. And they so freaked out that my parents and Terry's parents and Terry and I and the teacher and our regular teacher and our special ed teacher and the principal, we had this meeting in the school one night at 7 o'clock. We all had to go to this meeting. And this poor young thing, you know, told us that she thought that our brains were getting warped. And then we tried to tell her that, no, we read Terry's dad's book on the Rorschach test and we punked you. And her self-respect was at risk. And so she said, you know, no, you guys are twisted. And we were like, no, we're not.
He is the only man to ever ace a Rorschach test.
There you go. Thank you, Shane. And so anyhow, I don't remember how that story ended other than that we were allowed to continue with this accelerated education. But I said that two things happened by the time I graduated from elementary school and went on to junior high school. The first was that I had learned all that stuff. The second was that the war in Vietnam was starting. And as the war in Vietnam cranked up, Eisenhower's money, because it was no longer Eisenhower, it was Kennedy, Eisenhower's money for special education went away. And there was no program in my junior high school or in my high school like there was in my elementary school. And so I ended up, I was in high school, I was publishing an underground newspaper. My co-editor just sent me an email a couple months ago. First time I'd heard from him in 30 years. I got kicked out of high school for publishing this underground newspaper, and it was a great thing. It was the best thing that could have happened to me because I took a GED and I was able to immediately go into college. Went to LCC, Lansing Community College. But it's like, why aren't we funding our gifted kids? We stopped educating gifted kids when the Vietnam War started. And ever since then, we have been putting hundreds of billions of dollars a year into war and virtually nothing into our gifted children. Our school system is so screwed up.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
So anyhow, I don't have any instant solutions other than that I think that we really should be funding education differently. We should be doing it differently.